Hi, and welcome to the Healthcare CEO Show, where you'll find actionable insights on healthcare leadership from the best and brightest in the industry. I'm your host, Daniel Fernandez. Let's get a pulse. Welcome back. This season on the show, we are taking a closer look at the intersection of healthcare and private equity. We're going to learn about some of the challenges that come with that, but more importantly, the opportunities. With me today, I have Dr. Rashmee Patil. She is a hepatologist and the Chief Medical Officer of Pinnacle Clinical Research. Dr. Patil, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. I'm glad that we connected.
And I'm glad to have you on the show, and I'm glad to be able to pick your brain today so we can learn a little bit about your journey. And specifically, let's talk a little bit about your journey from physician to where you are today. I know it's you've accomplished a lot.
Yeah, it's a long story, so I'll try to distill it down to sort of the key highlights. But I'm a hepatologist, like you said, by training. So I did all of my training in liver disease and liver transplant. And when I think back on sort of how did I get here to where I am today, I made some key decisions that sort of changed the trajectory of my career. And one of them was that most hepatologists practice in academic medicine. So they're positioned in a large academic center, and they are sort of, they're doing academic medicine with a transplant program. And so in my career, I actually did the opposite. So I left after training and I went to a community practice. So where I am today in Texas, I'm in a very underserved area of Texas called the Rio Grande Valley. And I did a sort of general hepatology practice, built up a program. And in 2017 is when my career sort of shifted. I met my then mentor, Dr. Stephen Harrison, and he introduced me to an entire part of medicine that we're not exposed to in medical school. And that's really commercial medicine, which is drug development. So I was exposed right away to clinical trials, drug development, and the rest is history. So the highlights there are that I started a program from scratch at the hospital system where I was working. And I was in a traditional hospital, traditional practice, started a research program that grew very quickly. And then within 2 years, I decided I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to move out of the sort of, the walls of the hospital and start my own business. And so that was in 2020. And since then, since 2020, the business grew very quickly. And I ended up partnering with a larger clinical research network called Pinnacle Clinical Research. And I'm currently the Chief Medical Officer at Pinnacle.
So you had your own practice going, and then you joined Pinnacle Clinical Research. What was that process look like? What did that process look like, and sort of what prompted the initial conversations?
Yeah, so the initial business was a clinical research site business. So, I had formed, a business, been doing clinical trials, started with 5 people and 1 location in 2020. And then that grew to 30 people, 2 locations, over 30 clinical trials. And that all happened within 2.5 years. So from 2020 to mid 2022, I saw rapid growth. And this was also during the pandemic. So it was, when I look back on it, it was a lot happening, very chaotic. As a first time business owner, also the learning curve was very steep. So I was doing a lot. And this whole time, my mentor, Dr. Stephen Harrison, he was coming along for the ride with me, mentoring me, connecting me with the right people. And he had just sold his business, Pinnacle Clinical Research, to a private equity group. And so Pinnacle is the platform company, And so it was very almost strategic to come to me first. And it was really, we had a similar business. We were doing similar clinical trials. A lot of the best practices from my business were taken from his teachings and from his operational team's teachings. So it was very strategic to have those conversations. And so we were the first add-on business.
Okay.
My clinical research business was the first add-on business to Pinnacle. And instead of selling the business and sort of, kind of sitting back and, just letting the larger entity sort of figure things out for us through an integration, I came on as CEO of the combined business. So we went from Pinnacle was 3 site locations. When they added my business, turned into 5 site locations. And so I came on as CEO of that combined company.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. Yeah.
I imagine they don't teach how to scale your practice quickly in med school. And there's probably
not at all. Not at all. They don't teach us any. Yeah. There are no MBA courses, right. Business courses in medical school. That's for sure.
Right. So the learning curve, like you said, had to be steep just because you don't have that bolt-on MBA. What were some of those earlier challenges? Because that's a lot to tackle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, well, first of all, going through the sale of a business for me was completely new and novel. And so I did have the partnership of Dr. Harrison. So he sort of did take me through, this is what to expect. So it wasn't like I was going in completely blind, but I think I did, looking back, make a mistake in the sense that I didn't bring my team on sooner. I didn't bring them into the conversations about the acquisition soon enough. So I couldn't really lean on them during the diligence process. And if you probably know, like going through a diligence process of your business is a lot of work. So for one person, like I owned the business, operating the business, was the key person in the business. And then to also be going through diligence at the same time, it was a lot. And so what I would recommend to anybody looking back, I would say, bring your team in, like bring a couple of core individuals into the process, even if you don't end up selling, to help you with diligence and to have them be there to talk things through with you, during that process.
Do you think how important do you feel surrounding yourself with that leadership team is, even as you scale? I mean, you're talking about the due diligence process, but even as you're talking about scaling a practice, because there's so many pieces.
Oh, absolutely. So the only reason that we have grown as much as we have at Pinnacle, and when I say we have grown a lot, I will tell you how much we've grown. So when I started in December of 2022, I sold my 2022. Yes, I sold my business. And since then, we've grown to 14 locations. So we started with 3, Pinnacle was 3 locations. And so from then until now, 14 locations, both through organic growth. Like we've started de novo clinical research sites in Texas and in New Jersey, but we've also acquired several businesses. So when my business was sold and we went through that integration process, I came on as CEO. It was more like a merger. It felt more like a merger because we really went through a lot of different departmental like we took best practices from both businesses and really tried to meld them. Like it wasn't kind of checking the boxes. It was really intentional. And it took about 6 months, I would say. So in 2023, it was really just recalibrating the larger business and putting those core players into place in the organizational chart and making sure we had enough support at all of the locations. And then in 2024, we really picked up speed, and we acquired 4 businesses in 2024. And again, like you said, it is very important to have the right teams in place because you have your core business, the people that are running the business, right, the day-to-day, and then you have your team of people that are focused on integrations. Because integrations, just imagine adding 0.5 FTE to your core team otherwise. And so what we learned and what we're doing now, that we didn't do as well in 2024 is that we have that team. We have an integration team, an integration management office, like people that are sort of leading the charge there. So really important to have a good team.
That's impressive growth. I mean, you say 3 to 14, but really you started as a solo practice, and then before merging, you've gone from 1 to 14, which is an even greater growth trajectory. So you talked about you're adding de novo locations, and then you're also adding through acquisitions as well.
Yes.
What do you think the pros and cons are between the two? Because they're both kind of different, in their own way.
Yeah, definitely very different. The benefit of a de novo is that you have control over the process, right? You're controlling where you go. You're controlling sort of the exactly how the site gets set up, what therapeutic area you want to lead with. You hire the staff, and it's a checklist, right? So you're just checking the boxes of how you've done things at your other sites. But it's there are risks to de novo sites, right? They don't always work, especially if they're not attached to a clinical practice. And all of our sites are brick and mortar clinical research sites that are not attached to a practice. So there are benefits. There are benefits to de novo. You also have to ramp up revenues, right? So you're starting in the negative, and you've got to really build up the commercial pipeline. You've got to build up revenue in general. With acquiring a practice or a clinical research site or a business, you're buying a brand. You're buying. It allows you to move into new areas. It allows you to partner with people that are doing things very well, that can help bring an additional service line maybe to the core business, or can, help amplify what you're already doing. And we operate in 2 core areas. So we operate in liver disease, in a type of disease called MASH, which is fatty liver disease, and then also in Alzheimer's disease. But our core business is really in MASH. And so in 2024, we acquired 2 businesses that were 100% focused in Alzheimer's disease. And so those business leaders, one in New Jersey, one in Dallas, were excellent partners because they brought the best practices, they brought business development, they brought their subject matter expertise to our network to allow us to expand our other locations sort of into that new area as well. So I think going back to your question, the benefit of M&A is that it opens the aperture, like you can do more, you can learn more, and revenue-wise, like these are really established locations, and the private equity group has different thresholds that they look at in terms of EBITDA, et cetera. So I think it's very accretive and additive to the core business. The difficulties in M&A are that, sometimes it's a cultural, you really need to make sure culturally that you're aligned. And a lot of times, as a business owner, right, you've been running things the way you've been wanting to run things for a long time, right? And so making sure that the owners have investment into the growing organization, and that expectations are really clear at the time of M&A, I think is really important. And some you do really well, some you learn from, but each iteration needs to get better and better. And I think that's what Pinnacle we're doing really well, is we're getting better and better in the M&A process.
Yeah, and you've also talked about your core business being in Texas. Now you have an add-on that's in New Jersey now, right? So you're multi-state.
Yeah, so we're concentrated in Texas, but yes, you're right, multi-state. So we have the 2 sites in New Jersey, and we also acquired a location in Las Vegas. So we also have like a Western presence that we are wanting to build out as well. So geographically, yes, you're right. We have access to more patients. We can serve our sponsors or pharmaceutical companies that are wanting more diversity, right, in where their locations are, et cetera.
How now, with you being multi-state, how do you balance the need for you're trying to maintain a culture across practices that are now multi-state. How do you balance, the day-to-day operations with the need to kind of see some of these people face to face? Do you have you carve out some time to have face to faces with some of these practices?
Yeah. So when I stepped into the role of chief medical officer, we brought on a new CEO, and also we filled the position of a COO as well. So we have a pretty built out
Okay.
C-suite, but we also have regionally, we have directors, project managers, leadership. We have physicians that are leaders at their location. So I think in general, we never came from the thesis statement that every site is going to be the same. Like,
Okay.
every location is going to have their own sort of personality. But as long as the core values are similar across the locations, and we're doing most of the things the same. So, for example, we've standardized the clinical trial management system that we all use. So we're all on the same CTMS. We all have similar processes for QC, for quality. We have very similar standard operating procedures. So trainings, et cetera. So and a lot of the back office has been centralized. So finance is centralized, HR is centralized, marketing is decentralized, but we're now trying to build more of a centralized patient engagement function. And so, in general, I think the sites understand that they're part of something bigger, but they're allowed to have their own personality. And I think face to face conversations are really important. So our CEO, our COO, even our CFO, myself, I mean, we travel a lot. So we're going to the sites, we're meeting, especially if there's maybe an underperforming location or there's something going on, there's turnover. We want to get there in person and figure out what's happening with the leadership there.
Yeah. Now with some of I imagine since you are acquiring so quickly, you probably have some acquisition goals for the year and coming years. Is that correct? My assumption?
So our goals for M&A, we can't really control in terms of which sites might be looking to be acquired or sort of, because both the seller and the buyer have very specific criteria, right, that they're looking for. So a lot of times it's serendipitous, but we would love to, we're 14 sites now. I mean, we would love to double our footprint, both through acquisitions and de novo growth, in the next 2 to 3 years. That would be the goal. But we're always looking for clinical research sites. So I think for your listeners too, right? If you have any folks that are looking, to understand better the industry, feel free to reach out. It is an interesting time in the clinical research site business. So there's a lot of consolidation happening. But again, you've got to be really intentional about who you're bringing into the network. There's got to be synergy. There's got to be really good synergy.
Yeah. Would you be looking for hepatology practices and neuro practices, or something?
Yeah. So our focus, like I said, I mean, what differentiates us is another thing that I think anytime you're looking to sell, first of all, you want to ask yourself, do I want to be a platform company? Like, do I want to be the main company on which the private equity group is going to build? Or do I want to join something that's already pretty well oiled or that's growing? And so I think for the folks that are listening, if they do own a clinical research site, number one, we're looking for folks that are looking to join a growth-oriented company, because we're in that phase of growth. And also folks that are more focused in GI, right? So we focus in liver, you're right. We do a lot of fatty liver disease, but then also we are quite focused in Alzheimer's as well. So these are really difficult fields. These are really hard to do clinical trials. And so we want to make sure that the people that we are bringing on are also focused on the more complex types of clinical trials. Right.
Yeah, I fully support your GI direction,
Yeah.
especially,
Oh,
especially
really?
I'm a 25-year colon cancer survivor.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Oh
so
my
I appreciate that
goodness.
direction and all of it
Wow.
immensely. The research
Yes,
side of
research
things.
is so important, and it is,
Yeah,
because even in this field, just to geek out a little bit about
yeah,
liver disease, when I started in 2017, we didn't have a single drug that was approved to treat the progressive form of fatty liver disease, which is called MASH.
wow,
And now our business, Pinnacle Clinical Research, was involved with the largest, um, effort to bring a drug to market, and we were involved with that trial. And the drug now is approved. It was approved last year. It's called Resdifra, the first drug to treat this type of liver disease. And we enrolled, I personally enrolled, several patients into the
yeah,
trial and could kind of see the entire process, which
yeah,
was amazing to see. So it's really rewarding to be in the
yeah.
field.
It's got to feel good to be on the side that's making a huge impact in the industry as a whole. I mean, that's
Yeah.
you guys are doing some really amazing stuff there.
Yeah, we're pushing the boundaries, and I think
Yeah.
also something that I am very interested in personally is bringing more physicians into the field, into the field of clinical research, because we're not taught about clinical research in medical school. We're not taught about the commercial side of medicine or even career paths within pharma, and so part of what I want to do is take my experience and be a conduit for some of that knowledge. So how do I spread that knowledge to other physicians that might be interested?
Now, let's put your like future thinking cap on. We're looking down the road. What sort of changes do you foresee with like AI technologies and things like that? Do you feel like it would be an enhancement to some of the things that you're already doing, or expedite some of the processes, or how do you think it would impact the industry as a whole?
AI is absolutely going to change things. I think right now in globally in the life sciences industry, um, we're just starting to see different companies come forward. But for example, in clinical trials in fatty liver disease, right, AI is now looking at biopsy reports, like looking to see whether the patient qualifies for the trial just based on AI being able to read the biopsy instead of a human physician, like a pathologist, right? And so there was a lot of movement towards um, standardizing processes and improving efficiencies and things like that through AI. But where we're seeing it is actually in the patient recruitment space. So
Okay.
you may or may not know this, but clinical trials are prolonged a lot of times. It's very hard to enroll clinical trials on time. Pharmaceutical companies lose hundreds of millions of dollars over this pain point. And so AI is really trying to help identify the right patients for the right trials at the right time, and also do a lot more direct to patient outreach, because traditionally, for complex trials like ours, we traditionally go through a network of physicians who refer to us, but AI kind of allows us to say, okay, how do we reach direct to patient and get more engagement that way? So there's a lot of innovation coming, and I think it will be welcomed for most, and we also need to stay ahead of it for sure.
Now it seems like that's on the opportunity front. Let's talk about the challenges, sort of things. Are there any headwinds you feel like you're facing as an industry, or could be policy changes or changes as you continually scale and create a larger footprint for the organization? What are some of those challenges that you foresee?
Yeah, I think growth is challenging always. But if you're not growing either personally or through the business, and you don't have a growth mindset, then it's not really fun, in my opinion. Right. So,
Yeah.
and our founder, Dr. Harrison, he had that sort of, he was cut from that cloth that, how do I push the envelope? Like, what's next? What's around the corner? And so you always need to be sort of thinking that way. So growth is hard because it requires people on the team to also be growth mindset oriented. So sometimes people find their way out of the organization because they can't sort of change the way that they are approaching problems or see into the future. But I think that's just the natural way that any organization progresses, right, and changes. It's also hard with growth to keep the quality of your work at the center of what you do. So sometimes profitability and growth outweigh quality and precision, and you have to have both in clinical trials. You can't grow at the expense of quality, because we are judged on our data quality and integrity. And so we always have to keep that front of mind. And then I would say from a macro perspective, clinical trials are, we always have to see what the FDA is doing. We've got to see where is capital flowing into which therapeutic areas. Are we in the right areas at the right time? And we've always got to be kind of planning for the next thing. And the industry is very cyclical. So again, it's just being prepared, knowing your industry, and making the adjustments in the business as needed.
That's perfect. We close the show with 2 final questions, and I'm going to start with the first one. There's a saying that leaders are readers, and there's no doubt that I'm sure you've read many books over the years. Do you have a book or 2 that you've read over the years that's been that's inspired you along the way?
So I read a lot, but I don't know that I have a favorite book. I'm the type of person that keeps a lot of different books open at the same time, as we talked about. And I also listen to podcasts a lot. So I think my advice to any reader or any listener, would be just absorb what you can, because there's a ton of content out there. So there's a lot of free knowledge out there. So for me, but specifically, if you ask me a book, I read a few years ago, Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, which was a really great book. And I like Simon Sinek in general. I listen to a lot of Brené Brown. I like the way that she thinks about problems. And she also has a saying that I used to say all the time to my team, and they really didn't like it. At some point they were like, okay, we get it. But it's not about who's right. It's about getting it right. So if there was a problem, the blame game, I don't like to, do that. And if there is a problem, we're going to talk it out, and we're going to figure out how do we get it right next time. And then I also have recently read a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. It's not business related really, but he's a great investor, philosopher, and I took a lot of nuggets out of that book.
Yeah, that's a great book. I'm going to add it to my list with all of my other books, because after every show, I end up going to Amazon and ordering more books that I never had. And next thing you know, you're surrounded with a library.
You have like 20 books open.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I have books that I listen to while I run, and then I have books that I listen to when I'm sitting on the couch, and they're not always the same,
Right.
Not always even in the same genre. So one final question, and this is really where I turn the mic over to you. What advice would you give someone who's in a similar position to you? They may be looking to scale a practice. They may be looking to exit a practice. They may be on the other side of an acquisition that's looking to scale up and dealing with some of the same challenges and opportunities that you have faced so far.
Yeah, so I would say there's 2 sides to answer that question. So for me, looking back when I was first entering the experience and I was a business owner looking to sell, I would recommend, like I said before, number 1, be prepared for diligence. It's a tough process. Bring on 1 or 2 key members of your team to support you. But also, get the advice of a broker. Look for other folks around you who you can lean on for their expertise. So you need a great lawyer, you need a great accountant, you need, a broker. Make sure you have a good team around you during the process as well. And then once you're in it, like once you've sold your business on the other side, I think really understanding what do you want out of it, right? So that should really probably be done before sale as well. So understanding what are the expectations of you once you're on the other side, because oftentimes when expectations are not set appropriately, it leads to a lot of, just miscommunication. And I think at the end of the day, any leader needs their team members to understand the assignment and to be rowing in the same direction to get to goal, right? So I think business owners who are wanting to sell, they really need to ask themselves, like, what's going to be different when I sell? And what do I want on the other side of this?
Yeah, that's very insightful knowledge, and thank you for sharing. Dr. Patil from Pinnacle Clinical Research, I want to thank you for joining us on the show today. And
thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on the Healthcare CEO Show. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform for more insights from the top. Until next time, lead boldly and care deeply. See you on the next episode.